welcome back to Grandpa and the Millennial. I am Natasha, the Millennial, and I'm here with Anthony, who's the Grandpa. We have another exciting guest today. Before I have Anthony introduce her, I just want to remind everybody listening to make sure you follow and subscribe to our pages on LinkedIn. The title is Tell Us Your Story. On Facebook and Instagram, it is Grandpa and the Millennial. We would love your support. Invite your friends, invite your family, share it out. We appreciate it. And with that, Anthony, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm really excited. So we have an old friend on the show today that I'm really excited to have this conversation with. So Anita Gibbs is the Chief Operating Officer at 360 Payment Solutions. Welcome, Anita.
Thanks, Anthony. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, really excited to have you. So before we jump into your story, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're at today and your role and your position with your current company?
Yeah, so I'm Chief Operating Officer of a financial technology company. We're a fairly small company that's a subsidiary of our larger organization. But the team that I run, we have about 60 employees and about 50 million a year type size company. I'm in charge of product technology, our operations center, which is our customer support and our tech support, and our installation team, as well as finance. So that rolls up to me. Basically, all of the company except for sales and business development.
Wow, quite a bit.
It's a lot of hats.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear your journey and how you got to this particular role. So why don't we start with where it all began, where you grew up. So Anita, tell us your story.
Yeah, so I grew up in Cottonwood, California, which is hopefully not a word anybody knows. It's close to Redding, California, up in the sticks, a very small town. I remember when we got our first stoplight. It is that small of a town.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how many siblings did you grow up with? Who was with you?
I am one of 6 kids, and my oldest brother is 6 years older than me. My mom had 2 sets of twins. I am a twin as well. So she had 6 kids in 6 years.
Wow.
We're very tight knit.
And did you go through high school in Cottonwood, or did you move other areas? You grew your whole childhood in that particular area?
I actually went to high school up in Redding. My mom would drive me. It was a 30-minute drive from my home in Cottonwood up to Redding. I was a gymnast, and there's no gymnastics in Cottonwood. And so she would drop me off before work, and I would go to school all day, and then I would walk a little over a mile to gymnastics, where I would train, or I would teach the beginning and intermediate classes in exchange for the fee of taking the advanced classes. And in between classes, I would do homework, and then my mom would pick me up at like 6:30 at night.
Oh, wow. So
it's like a job, your first job, and also a sport. Your siblings went to the school near your house, and you were the only one that traveled a little bit for school?
Yeah. Yep, that's right. Yeah, they all went to the local school.
Interesting. So did you do gymnastics through your entire school into college, or was it just through high school?
No, I had done gymnastics when I was little at a local community center. And then the coach there, his dad taught at a bigger gym. And so I got to go to the bigger gym for a little bit, but my parents didn't have a lot of money. And then obviously having 6 kids, they couldn't afford even like the gas to get me there anymore. So I had to quit. So then I just did cheer and stuff like that. But I always really wanted to go back to gymnastics. And then Mom had run into my old coach, and he said that he was teaching at the YMCA, and that if she could get me there, that he would let me work in exchange for the gymnastics.
Oh, super interesting.
Yeah, that's good.
So take us through high school and the decision-making process, and what's the next step past high school going into college, and what your career aspirations were, if there were any career aspirations other than gymnastics.
Yeah, so a lot of, for me, it was always just that, I was always attracted to city life, and I wanted to get out of Cottonwood. We would drive down to LA or San Francisco to visit family. And I was always just like enamored with the city. And then, just like watching TV, it was actually, you'll see I fit into the millennial phase here. The movie, Look Who's Talking with Kirstie Alley. She was, worked in a high rise in the city, and she was an accountant. And I wanted to be just like her when I was little. And I was really good at math. And so that was my whole thing, was I was going to move to the city and be an accountant. So I, knew that going to college was how I was going to get out of my hometown. And then also my mom had instilled in us the importance of education, like really young. My mom actually went back to school to finish her degree when my parents got divorced. And then, I watched my older brother go off to college and things like that. And so I always knew that like college was definitely something that I was going to do. So in high school, even in junior high, I was taking kind of advanced level courses and on the college prep track, they called it back then.
When we think about, or when I think about what you wanted to do past high school, was being an accountant, was that the actual destination, or was it just part of the dream?
It was just a dream at first, but I mean, I was very goal oriented. So I was very set on, like, even when I went into junior college, that I was going to be an accountant. And it wasn't until like I took my first accounting courses that I decided that was not what I wanted to be.
I took that one course. It was required in college, and I was like, I don't know how they do this. It was tough. It was tough.
For me, and this is just my odd mind, I thought accounting was boring. I didn't think it was tough enough.
Oh, wow.
And so so I started just going towards a like general business degree, and then started looking into financial management. And so my next goal then I was going to be a financial analyst. That was my big goal.
So take us through your college. So you started off in junior college, and how many years did you spend there? And then where did you transfer, and what did that look like?
Yeah, let me back up a little bit, because I went to junior college because I was a young mom. I got pregnant in high school. And so I took the high school proficiency exam and graduated early, which is basically you just test out of senior courses. And so I was able to start junior college fairly young, but I was only taking a couple classes at a time, not really full time the first year. And then, so I was there for 2.5 years. And then I transferred down to Sacramento State. And that was really the decision with that. It's like I got into a lot of schools, but my husband's job could transfer to Sacramento. So that's how we ended up in Sacramento. And then also it's a good community to raise kids. And even though, I would have liked to gone to a bigger city, having kids and raising them in a bigger city would have been a lot tougher. So.
All right. So you said you had started young. How young did you start?
I took classes. Yeah, I took classes at 16 when I enrolled in college.
Got it.
Oh,
Well, so was the transfer quick too? I'm assuming to Sac State. How old were you when you started Sac State?
I was 20.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so I did. I got my full AA in business at the junior college, and then transferred down to Sac State to get my bachelor's.
And were you going to school and raising your child, or were you also working? Was there any job in that period? I mean, being a mom is a job, but.
Yeah, I was working part-time at the same time and going to school. And by the time I went to Sac State, I had actually had 3 children. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know the timeline. Okay, so dedicated to both then. You have a family that you're raising, but you are laser focused on finishing your degree. And you had talked about your parents instilling that in you. Is that where you credit it to? Like a lot of people would tap out at 1 child and go into college. You have 3 and you're finishing your degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of that was just that birth control didn't work on me. So, but I was very determined to, finish my degree to be able to provide a life for my kids. And one of the things that drove me, and the reason I brought up gymnastics, was because the fact that I had to quit gymnastics because my parents couldn't afford it. It was something that stuck with me for a long time, and I didn't want to do that to my kids.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we've heard this a couple of times as people make decisions in their life, good or bad, looking back at the way that they were raised or the situation. It sounds like you were everything was fine. It just money was tight, so it left an impression of what you didn't want, which is a very strong motivator.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sometimes that's, you have negative and positive motivations, and that was definitely something that, not to say that, of course, when I was little, I thought I was going to be the next Mary Lorette. And then I thought, I was going to be an Olympic gymnast and all this. And, whether that was true or not, it was something that I enjoyed. But because it was a more expensive sport, I didn't get to do it. Whereas my other siblings got to do, the local baseball and the local football and things like that, because they were cheaper sports.
So now you're graduating college, 3 kids. And what's the dream? What's your next step? What are you looking at?
Yeah. So while I, said that my next goal was to be a financial analyst, when I was in college, I really wanted to, if I wasn't a mother, I would, and it wasn't in a rush to get out of college, I would have done a dual major in computer science and in financial management, because, this is in late 90s, early 2000s timeframe. I knew that computers were going to be taking over a lot of the accounting activities, and a lot of the financial analytics was going to be going into the computer world. But I didn't have time to do a double major. So I just went and did financial management. And then one of the courses that I took was an investments course. And I was like really intrigued by it and really enjoyed it. And then I became part of the investment society at school. And there I found out about an internship at Morgan Stanley, which is an investment group, and they have an office there in Sacramento. And so I did started as a summer internship with them, kept me on part-time throughout the school year, where I was helping their investment management group. And I really started to get interested in the financial markets and all of that, which is something that I, had zero exposure to as a child growing up. But I quickly learned that a typical stockbroker isn't something that I would feel comfortable doing, because the strategy that I had learned and the, investment analytics and things like that, they're all based on like buying strong companies and holding them. But as a stockbroker, you make money on trades. You make money getting your clients to buy and sell. And whether that's the right thing for them or not, that's what you have to do to get paid. And so I felt like they're like in a typical stockbroker relationship. And this is before E-Trade and online and all this stuff, right? In that typical stockbroker relationship, there's a conflict of interest there. And so, but in this group that I was interning with, it was a investment management group where there was a whole team of us, and we took a percentage of your assets every quarter as our fee. So if your portfolio valuation goes up, we make more. If your portfolio goes down, we make less. And so that felt more aligned. And so I went all in on this. I got my stockbroker's license. I got my investment advisor's license. Yeah, I was absolutely loving my job. I was doing the client services side. And then, 9/11 happened. And then the stock market crash happened, and things started to turn. And the head investment advisor, he started kind of just not being available to his clients and kind of hiding behind the rest of his team, because all of a sudden we weren't making double-digit growth. And, I was a young one that was getting yelled at by his customers that, wanted to speak to the head guy. And here I am fresh out of college. I sound like a 13-year-old on the phone. Didn't want to talk to me. And so it just kind of started to turn into something bad that I wasn't comfortable with anymore. And then, the head investment advisor, he made millions a year and, wasn't paying me pennies compared to that. And because the stock market went down, he took a big chunk of my bonus that was paying for my childcare.
Oh, wow.
And yeah.
And so, Anita, if I can ask you real quick, so is this, in that environment, would he be considered your boss? Is that?
Yes. Yeah, he was my boss.
So when you think back, as we talk about leadership and the interaction, and I think you're going down that path, did he sour the way you felt about that particular career? That
He did.
He did.
Yeah.
And as you look back, give us some insight into that. What went right there? What went wrong? You're going down that path.
Yeah.
I just want to dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah. So it's really about that. I didn't feel like he was giving people the level of service that we had promised. And so that just didn't feel comfortable to me anymore. I had like a moral conflict inside that here these people were paying us a decent amount. And yeah, we didn't have all the answers, and that most of it was out of our control based on just the bigger macroeconomics and the environment that we were in, but that we still owed it to them to have a conversation. We still owed it to them to explain to them what was going on. And so it just got very frustrating, and it wasn't the customer service that I wanted to be able to provide. And I felt like he was just not honoring his commitments.
Was the leadership good when things were going well? Was it all, did you have any signs of that being, it's kind of once things, started falling apart, all of a sudden it was different? Or what was that like?
The leadership was, I don't know if it was just, I didn't know better because I was young and it was my first real job, or if it was because also that industry, investment arena is very cutthroat. It is very, very much still, a good guy's industry. So even being a female in that industry is very, very rough even today. Mm. And, he was a very intelligent, smart man. And I looked up to him for his intelligence, but not his personality, not his morals, not his family values. I mean, all of that stuff was clearly like not in alignment with me. But when things were good and the market was doing great and, we were doing great, we did communicate regularly with clients. We sent quarterly newsletters. They came in for quarterly reviews. I would help prepare for those reviews and help write the newsletters. And then when the market turned, he wasn't doing those activities anymore.
Interesting. And so
that's when his customers needed him. That's when his customers
the most important
the advice.
Yeah. When you think back now, has he left an impression in the way that you lead?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always, as I'm mentoring different leaders, I always tell them, you're going to take some good things away from me and some bad things. And the things that I do bad, you should learn just as much. I hope I'm never as bad as that individual you're describing. But I think we all leave an impression with people, and we should all take as a leader what we can from the good and the bad, and how we want to lead people. So I always like asking that question just to see if it's holds true.
Yeah.
So he takes you down a path, you don't want to do this career anymore. So tell us about what age you are and what your next step is.
So I was 24 and decided that it was not the best, or maybe 23, 23, 24. Decided it was not the best time for me to go out on my own in the investment arena. And so I went back to that kind of prior goal of being a financial analyst. And I applied for a job as a budget and forecasting analyst for a local company there in Roseville. And so I, jumped right into that job. I really enjoyed what I did, but very quickly there, kind of going back to what I said about like computer science, is that most of my job was around, working with systems. And at the time that I started there, they had hired a consulting company to come in and help them with a bunch of system migrations. And one of the systems that they were supposed to bring on was a system they were supposed to use for our budgeting, but the project ran out of money or something. I never got the full story, but they did not finish the budgeting and forecasting system. They, of course, were focused on like general ledger and HR systems and things like that. And so I just jumped in and figured it out and finished it and then rolled it out to the entire company and not me myself. There was a couple other people on the team, But, I went to our internal IT team and worked with them and told them, where it wasn't working and what we needed to do. And then, train the company on how to use the system. And so I was there on that team for a couple of years. And then the IT team was like, you're way too good at systems. You need to come work for us. And so they kind of poached me from the finance team.
So while we were going through that on the finance side, and you're taking that project on, or you're leading the project, are you leading other people? Is it from sitting in the back? Is this your first exposure to leadership, taking on this type of project?
I didn't have any sort of direct reports. I didn't have any at that time, on my resume, there wasn't leadership, but I definitely was just like, this is falling apart. I'm going to pick it up and figure it out and run with it. And then that I kind of, just naturally did what I needed to do to make things work. Right. And then just kind of took it upon myself.
So I would imagine in that environment, you're working cross-functionally, you're working with people across the organization. Mm-hmm. So where is this leadership, this innate leadership coming from? Are you reading? Is this where you want to go? Do you have mentors? Like, are you just great with people? And the reason I'm asking this question, when I think about a project that someone's picking up, there's naturally going to be conflict, and you have to get resources. So how you don't have the title, but you're able to bring people together to finish a project. So where is this coming from? How's it originated?
Yeah, well, I leveraged a lot of my manager. Like she wasn't great with the systems aspect, but, she went and kind of told the company that, hey, we have to get our budget into the system. And so while I was working on and getting set up and prepping for training and stuff like that, she was going around and having all of the discussions with the different departments, because we had to do, this is a holding company. There's 12 companies underneath it, and we had to do budgets for all of them. And then, she had introduced me to people that were in the IT team that we needed to get resources from to get help to fix the system to make it something that we could actually use.
And so you were leveraging all of your resources.
And I just I just was naturally leveraging all my resources.
You just make it happen. It sounds like you just figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah, I just made it happen.
I love it.
I didn't know at the time that I was doing those things. I was just like, I had this goal and we're going to get it done.
Yeah, I think it's important to pause on, because there's, and I'm sure you've come across them, there's a lot of people that are just afraid to take a step in any direction without, getting someone's approval, or I have to work with this department or that department or this person or that person. And so there's something to be said for just picking it up and running with it and saying, hey, let's make it happen. And the next thing you know, you opened up a door into the IT world that wasn't necessarily in front of you before. So taking the risk paid off.
Yes. Yeah. And you'll find this is a common theme in my in my career path.
So IT door opens up. And so now where are you going?
Yeah. So I moved into the IT team, and there I had a very broad role of business requirements. So I was kind of they called me the interpreter, because I could speak the big business accounting language, and I could also speak systems, and developers and accountants talk different languages. So
yes,
I was just kind of like the intermediary. And so I did all of the discussions and coordinations of bringing the right people in and getting detailed requirements, so then I could give the developers something that they could actually just go code on. And then I did all the testing and all of the training for all of our financial systems. And then my responsibility just kind of grew to our other software as well. And then we had a project manager that was assigned to all of our projects. And that project manager was kind of creating more work for me and leveraging me to before our project status calls, he would call me and I would give him all the answers, and then we would get on in a call, and then he would sit and basically just repeat everything that I said to him. And so, I went into my manager and I was like, can I just run all of the projects that I'm on and not have another person that I have to communicate through, because it was just creating more work for me. And my boss was like, sure, go for it. So I just started managing all of the projects that I was also doing all of the requirements, testing,
Oh, wow.
training, and everything else on because I could do it the way that I felt was the right way to do it. And then with project management, that's kind of where I really started to like key in on more leadership skills and realize what I was doing was leadership. And with project management, you have zero authority. And so all of your influence is through alignment with people, aligning goals with people and helping them understand that like, we're in this together and let's help each other out. And it's better for all of us if we get this done. And here's why and here's how. And, I'm here to support you the whole way. And that, again, I wasn't anybody's direct manager, but I got a lot of things done and coordinated a lot of people and departments and all of that through just getting projects over the finish line.
So it's a lot of delegation. I think, like you said, you're working with a lot of people. So was that moving from you not being the one to just pick it up and get it done? Was that hard? What was it like? How did you kind of connect with some of those people or make it so that they would, at the end of the day, get the project done still, even though we weren't the one doing it?
At that time, I really hadn't figured out, I wouldn't say I was great at delegating yet. I was still taking on a lot of the work myself. The part that I was delegating was the development because I was not a developer. And so, I would leverage people in that way. And then I would, use management to kind of have that backing of the leadership and, try to get them aligned in the projects. And so I wasn't delegating a whole lot. I didn't learn to do that very well until a little bit later. I wished I would have.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question. It's that's a really hard part. I've come to learn and learning how to get over it.
So what was interesting though is that I was working in IT and I really loved that. Like I said, it was kind of a passion of mine that I didn't really get into immediately out of college, but eventually found my way there. So then from managing all of those projects, I kind of caught the attention of our chief technology officer. And he had said that they had a need for more project management across the whole organization and that he wanted to create another project manager position where I would be doing more than just IT projects. I'd be doing some major product rollouts and like marketing initiatives and cost saving initiatives and all kinds of stuff. And so I was like, well, this sounds very exciting, but I've never been trained how to do project management. I've just been getting stuff done. Like I've never been trained on it. And so I asked him if I took this position, if they would help me get certified. And so I got to go to a class and that's when I had to apply and became a certified project manager, which was the hardest exam I've ever taken. And I went to college and I have a stockbroker's degree and a investment advisor. The product management certification was hands down the hardest.
Yeah, I was going to say you have quite the resume. So to hear that, I'll stay away from that certification.
I have a question about so you seem confident in all these, your story about they're not managing the project, as maybe as good as you would. So asking for it, right? Or I'll take this position, get me certified. So it seems like you're very confident in your questions and taking that next step. Is that how you felt at the time? From an outside perspective, it sounds like you were not afraid to have those conversations. Is that how it felt?
It didn't feel that way. I had a lot of, I guess I have a lot of moxie is the right term. And I have confidence in myself that I will figure it out and that, I can learn, I love to learn new things and I do love challenges. But the reason the reason I was asking for training was because I felt like he was asking me to take on a role I wasn't ready for. And so it wasn't me saying, oh, you're going to get me certified. It was me asking for, I don't think I'm ready for what you're asking me to do. And I've only been comfortable managing IT projects because I know IT projects. I know those systems inside and out. I know all of the people that I'm working with. And now you're asking me to step out of my comfort zone and manage engineering products. And like, I don't know engineering products. I
Yeah.
don't know marketing. And so for me, it was me more so saying like, if you want me to be comfortable with this, like I need education on how to be a project manager.
Yeah. I think it's great knowing, or at least identifying, that it would be helpful to the role, or you were even willing to do that, right? Even outside of your comfort zone, I think is important. At the end of the day, it was asked and kind of got you to the next step, which is great.
Yeah. But I mean, it was like initially like fear. And then, I just sat with the, like, what am I afraid of here? And I was afraid because I was going into this unknown. And so, well, what do you do when you have something unknown? You get educated. That's how you figure it out.
It sounds so simple, Anita. So when you're going through all of this, do you have a professional mentor? Or are you learning on your own? How are you, aside from the certification, are you?
I didn't really have a direct mentor. As you mentioned, I had some managers that I learned what not to do from, and some managers that kind of helped me build some of that confidence. And my manager at that time, he was somebody that I felt like he trusted me more than I trusted myself. And so I would go to him with like, oh, I'm not sure about this. He'd be like, okay, tell me what you think. And I'd be like, how about this? He'd be like, yep, that's right. So he kind of like, he would never give me the answer. He would make me find the answers myself. And that's what helped me build confidence that I did know what to do. And I did know what I was doing.
And do you use some of those techniques today?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I bring this up probably on every conversation. The impact that we have, all of us have on somebody's career, may never know in the moment, but it's so profound, and everyone takes a piece of what we teach them that then builds these future leaders. And where you're at today, there's different pieces I can start to connect the dots that are part of your leadership style, which we'll get to. Okay, so you take this, you go get your project management certification, you take on this new role. So where are we at in your career? Where are we at age-wise, career, trying to get to where you're at now?
So at that time, I was 35. And so I was a project manager managing, 35, that's not right. 33. Yeah. I was, rolling out really big system enhancements, and then also working with a product team. This one's going to age me. I rolled out whole home DVR in
I know what it is, Anita. Natasha's face is blank.
No, I'm thinking, is that like that recording thing, like on the DVR?
Yes.
Okay. See, okay, I know it. You have to call me out.
It was very cool because more than one person could record at one time.
Oh.
So it was cutting edge technology.
It was. So are you having fun in your career where you're at this time?
I was. Yeah, I got to meet a whole bunch of new people. I was working with not just our, local communications company there, but, some big names like Lucent and Cisco and, really big companies that I used to invest in when I was working for an investment advisor. So that was fun.
So you're raising a family, you're having fun at your career. Are you trying to climb the corporate ladder, or you're focused on just doing a great job at what you're doing? You're having fun?
Yeah, I had actually, at that point, my kids were in, junior high and middle school, and they were all involved in their sports. I had a gymnast. I did not push her into it. It was her choice. And so, between, work and then running home and getting kids to practices, and husband was a coach for, many of our kids' teams. And so he'd take those kids, I'd take the other kids. And so we were, constantly running, and then I'd get back home and I'd jump back online and I'd get some more work done, late at night once they were all in bed.
And did you have a destination? Were you looking at the next position?
No, I wasn't. I had been told that like, you can make a lot of money in consulting as a project manager. And I actually had been offered some manager positions, but I turned them down because I wanted to make sure that I didn't want to travel a lot. I didn't want to have long work hours. My manager at that time was very, very open to me. Like, I would come into the office late, leave early, and then get back online late at night and work, or I'd be working on my laptop at my kids' practices and things like that. And that flexibility and being there for my family was more important at that time. And I didn't really have, any big aspirations. I was enjoying learning and enjoying what I was doing and enjoying the flexibility that it gave me as a mom.
Yeah, I think it's so important as I say we talk to the younger generations. You put your family first and you're still able to, walk into the role that your destination is still one that's very coveted. You can still get there. You don't have to have one or the other. You can have both. I think it's an important lesson for people to take away, because you hear all the time where you see the memes and life has changed so much, grind. But there is a balance, and family is very important.
Yeah.
I've known you for a long time. So I remember those times and those years, and you had all of the practices and the family events. You're incredibly successful. So take us from that position, and then I want to get to where you're at now, and then start to talk about your leadership and the way you manage your teams today.
Yeah. So the reason that I left that position was another manager that I was, I had gotten a new manager, and I did not align with her so well. And she was basically taking credit for all of my work and putting her name on my stuff. And I'm okay with that in some ways, of like, it's your team, you're responsible for it. So yeah, you should get the credit for it. But when she started taking my ideas and telling people that they were her ideas, that just created a big conflict for me. It's just as easy to say, hey, Anita thought, than it is for her to say, I thought. And she would just clearly go around telling people that she had these ideas. And then, we were just on this horrible project together, and the company was going through some acquisitions, and there was some layoffs. And as layoff lists would come out, I started being sad that my name wasn't on it. And I was like, that's not a good sign.
They say that people don't leave jobs, they leave leaders. And it sounds like you've had that experience a couple of times where it's just, it changes, the whole situation.
Yep. Yeah. And so I started just casually looking for work. I wasn't. And then I found something that looked like a perfect fit that was closer to home. And so I went and jumped to that role, which was an implementation manager. It was basically a project manager, but I was working on the Salesforce.com platform, which, so that's how I got introduced into that software, and helping people implement that software was my job. I came into the company that they were developing kind of their own CRM on top of Force.com that was specialized for the credit card industry and the kind of payment processing. And so it was a fairly new product, and they were, the company had rolled out something that wasn't quite ready. They didn't really have project managers. They didn't have kind of sound type of project theory. And so I came in with a bunch of experience that they didn't have on the team, and they quickly noticed oh, Anita's projects get done on time and on budget. And how is she doing this?
Magic.
Yeah. So that is when I then became a program manager, so manager of the project managers. And that was really my first official management title, where then I was, training other people in what I had learned and guiding them. And then quickly moved up there to director for the whole product line. So then I was managing product development, our customer support, and our implementation staff.
And so I always dive in here. How did you teach yourself leadership? You're now leading people, and it's regardless of when you start to lead people, it's incredibly complex and it's nuanced, and there's a learning curve to it for sure.
Yeah.
How did you go about that? What was it like?
So that is when I say I had to learn delegation, and it was very hard for me to trust that people were going to do as good a job as I was going to do, to be honest. And so that at this company, I did have a very good mentor, and my boss, Eve Marie, she was awesome. And I learned a lot from her in the way that she approached things, and the way that she was just very forward in communication, which is, I'm way more comfortable in that. I don't do bureaucracy well. I don't play games well. I'm just a very direct communicator. And so, seeing how she was able to do that and still maintain good relationship with people and respect from people. I learned a lot from her, and then she helped me kind of get over the the delegation.
And so did you mostly learn from watching, or were there conversations? Did you guys have leadership conversations and delegation conversations?
Yeah, there was a lot of conversations. We had, like a regular one-on-one that was, scheduled for a half an hour at the end of the day and would sometimes go 2 hours. We would just sit and talk, and she was really good about giving me guidance, and I could just ask her anything. And so any time that I got, I would just soak up as much as I could.
I love that.
And she kind of, told me that she saw, my talent and wanted to grow in me and invest in me, and thought that I could, take over that whole division.
Yeah, there's a theme as you talk, and Natasha touched on it, but the not so great leaders that you had, but then the ones that you talk about every other leader or so that invested their time in you, that allowed, they play a part in you flourishing and getting to the next level and gaining the confidence. And you can hear it in your story, how each of them impacted and influenced.
Yeah. And it's really about them believing in you, and like actually, saying out loud sometimes even that, that they think that you have a long career, and that, and so those are the pieces that, I've picked up and tried to use in my leadership still today. It's a lot of that.
So I love it. So where are we at? So you're in this role.
So now I am director of solutions, is what the title was called. And at that time, my youngest is getting ready to go off to college. I have now been divorced. My two oldest girls are already in college. One of them was getting married. And so I needed to make more money. I had a huge amount of responsibilities where I was. I tried to have conversations with them about pay, and they were not paying me at market. The payment industry at that time was also going through a rough conversion to the EMV chip card readers. So, there was uncertainty. So I think that they were struggling to be able to make a big commitment to me. So at that time, I did decide to make a career change and go do consulting, where I was told I could make a lot more money because, I had 3 kids in college and a daughter getting married, and it was very expensive.
Yeah.
I also had the freedom now to travel if I needed to travel. And so I took a job with a company that was based out of San Francisco. I worked remote most of the time, but I did have to travel quite a bit to the Bay Area and to Arizona.
And so is that where you're at now, or is that a stepping stone to your current role?
That was a stepping stone. So then I went through kind of a couple of different consulting companies as in consulting, you kind of jump around a lot as, contracts finish up, then you have to find another job, sort of a thing. So I was back to being an individual contributor, just, project manager, not having like a direct team that reported to me. And then another company that I was on a 9-month contract with, they had offered me a really good paying position to come on full time, but I did not like their company culture. I did not like the way that people treated each other. I did not like the way that people were allowed to speak to other people. It was very bureaucratic. It was very big. And I was oftentimes held up from getting stuff done because I was waiting for a meeting to happen before I would have the authority or approval to move on. And I'm somebody that just likes to get stuff done.
Yeah.
I want to move fast. I want to be able to see a problem and fix it. I don't want to have to get approval from 15 people before I can fix it, sort of a thing. Turned down that money and then went to another company where I went back into a management position where I was a regional director for a consulting firm. So I had developers and project managers and solution architects all up and down the West Coast. And my travel was to Seattle, San Francisco, and San Diego. So not a rough life.
You're continuing to grow through all taking on bigger and bigger roles.
Yeah. And then that company got bought out by Rackspace. And Rackspace, for those of you that aren't tech, they are basically a like cloud storage company. And so they had acquired our company to move into the consulting arena, but really didn't know anything about running a consulting company. And so they started making a bunch of changes and trying to align our teams the same way that they were aligning other teams. And that just, it was all bad. And I tried to, warn people and alert people of that, in consulting, your people are your products. And so you have to have the right support for your people. And they just were not hearing it. And so I did take a couple of different positions there. But while I was there, I got the opportunity to be part of a leadership academy. And so in the leadership academy, even though like I kind of knew at the time that Rackspace management didn't align with me, I had this opportunity to go get more education. And so I, got to go to a whole bunch of different, sessions where they taught us about like crucial conversations, and they taught us about like, thank you for your feedback, like how to give and receive feedback appropriately. They taught us about presentations. They taught us about like, all kinds of stuff that managers need. So it was really a great experience. And then after that, I kind of started thinking about possibly leaving Rackspace because I felt like they were just ruining that whole consulting division. And so I had gotten a call from one of my old clients from 10 years prior asking me to meet with them for coffee to give them or lunch to give them some advice. And so I had met up with them, and they basically said that they, had this big opportunity to grow and scale their business. They didn't know how to scale it. They didn't even know what they needed to hire for, to have somebody come in and, look at what they were doing. And the type of consulting I was doing while it was around Salesforce and software, we had this theory of process first, technology second. And so we were really process engineers that would then, once we helped you clean up your processes, then we would help you, implement new software that would support those processes. And so, when these prior clients of mine came to me, they were one of my favorite clients as far as like the culture of their company, the way that they negotiated, the way that they ran business. They were tough negotiators, but always fair, and they listened to the other side. And then when we were at conferences together, we would party together, and they were fun. So
very important.
One of the themes across people that we talk to is how important networking is. And so for you, that's, after you said 10 years, and then it presents this opportunity or a lunch. Any thoughts around networking? Yeah, and networking is extremely important. A lot of the positions that I had gotten, especially in the consulting arena, were from either people I had worked with before, or people I had, done business with before, or somebody that knew somebody of mine. That's how I got all of my consulting jobs.
Yeah, Natasha, it's a consistent thing.
Then. Yeah. And so with this, this conversation, they were asking me like, what type of skill set should we hire, or, what do we do? And I just said, hire me. And they were, they were shocked. They're like, are you available? We didn't know you were available. And I'm like, well, I could be. And so I went ahead and moved over to them, and I took a pay cut to go work for them. And it was really because I wasn't happy with the way that my company and the direction that they were going. I felt like this would be a good opportunity. And then also it would just be a company that I felt good working for. They're good, honest people. They do business the right way. So again, kind of that another kind of theme in my story is that every time I went after money, I wasn't happy. But if I went after a company that was a good fit and a good culture, I was happy, and the money does come eventually.
Yeah, that is a theme. That. And so I have to get you to your current role, Anita. So is that's this position?
Yeah, well, I came on to work on technology. So I was their VP of technology and helped them scale and fix their systems. And then they rolled product under me, and then they rolled the rest of the operations and finance under me.
So it really was a cup of coffee that turned into your current role.
Yep. That's amazing.
It is. It's an amazing journey. And, I had asked you, I wanted to spend a few minutes walking through your leadership and the way that you lead and the principles. So you don't mind telling us, if you're comfortable, how many people that, work under you or how many teams you have, and what are some of your thoughts on leadership and the way that you manage?
Yeah, so I don't often count, but I think it's around 40, 42 that are underneath me. But I have like 4 direct reports, and then they have teams underneath them. The way that I've always managed people really goes back to my project management. It's really about the whole secret to project management.
Here it is.
No, I love it. I'm getting my notes ready. I'm ready.
That you set people up for success. You figure out, what do you need them to do? And then when do you need them to do it? You find a goal that you can align with them on. You get them to believe in that goal and why it's in their best interest. And then you figure out what tools and resources that they need to do their job the right way and to get it done online, and you make that happen for them. So it's always about being like a step ahead and then just setting your team up for success. What do you need them to do? And you help figure out how to help them, and for them to be able to see it for themselves is the biggest trick.
And so what are your biggest...
That's kind of how I manage all of my teams. And
what are your biggest challenges in managing that? It like when you say it, it makes perfect sense. And it's like, oh, that's easy. And then you add people to the mix. And then people changes that dynamic. So what's your biggest challenge and then how do you overcome those challenges?
Well, one, like the job is never done. So even though like what I just stated took a minute, it's an everyday occurrence. You're every day realigning. You're every day motivating. You are every day driving, and goals change continuously. And so you're every day realigning. You're defining. You're thinking about what's next. You're trying to think about the future constantly, and then how to prepare for that today, and then setting your teams up that way. You're like I said, with that giving constant feedback, it can never stop. Like you're constantly giving feedback to your team, both positive, because you want to make sure that you're recognizing the behavior that you want, seeing that public, so others are motivated by it as well. And then also to give feedback in the moment as soon as you see something that didn't go as expected, or didn't align with what you expected, that you're having that conversation right away, and that you're having it in just a candid, casual conversation. Like mine has always been, and what I train my other managers in, is that nobody should be surprised when they get an employee review. Nobody should be surprised when you sit down for a formal review, because anything on that review should have been something that you had talked about before and given feedback before. And that's how you build relationships with people, because then they see that you actually care about them and you care about their growth and that you're invested in them, and that's how you build that trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can say, I don't know how long that took for you to describe, but I know that takes years and years and years to develop, and then to implement and make mistakes along the way and learn from those mistakes. So while you eloquently described what leadership is and what a great leader is, I know how much work goes into that, as others do as well.
There are terms now that, like, one of them is called like growth mindset. Now that I read books, I'm like, oh, that's what I was doing. I didn't know there was a term for it, but
yeah,
that's really kind of what it's about. And a lot of it, there's some great leadership books out there that a lot of them will compare to like a sports team or something like that. And I've always said, like, I'm your biggest cheerleader, and that's kind of what your role is as a manager, is to root for your team.
Interesting. So you mentioned growth mindset, and I'm going to put you on the spot. And if I need to cut it out, I'll cut it out. Do you have a favorite book, leadership book, that you would recommend?
I have several leadership books. One of the ones that helped me, I would say, the most, and this one I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name.
I never remember the author.
I know, the author. So one that I can remember that was kind of pivotal in like my leadership is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
So we had Dare to Lead, and then what other books would you have to recommend?
Thanks for the Feedback is also one, and Crucial Conversations.
Okay.
And those are 2 books I do kind of trainings for my team surrounded by those books, and then ask them to read those books.
I'm reading Dare to Lead right now, so now I'm just even more motivated to finish it. So yeah, I'm early in it, but it's my book of choice right now.
It's great.
So Anita, I have a question. When you think about a chief operating officer and those that are within your organization, typically those that are just coming up, sometimes it can seem like such a high level position and possibly unapproachable. And if you were giving advice to those that are entering their career, or they've been in their career for 5, 10, 15 years, and what are you looking for in leaders and employees that stand out to you?
First thing is a good culture fit. We're a company that our culture means everything. And it's all about, that customer service approach from Eddie in our organization. It doesn't matter if you're customer facing or not, that we treat each other, treat partners the way that we treat, and then obviously our customers, is with a very customer service approach. It is all about how we can help you, how we can help each other, and then constant continuous improvement. A lot of companies say that. A lot of companies do not live by it, and we definitely do. We also have bureaucracy. We use this program on Slack called Donut Date, where it matches you up random with people throughout the organization. So it's to meet with everybody, to meet with our owners, to meet with our CEOs. We're really about getting to know each person, getting to know them, but about, work ethic and, wanting that wants to drive the business forward.
Oh, that's really interesting.
That is really cool. Yeah.
So I want to be sensitive to your time, Anita. So Natasha, did you have questions before?
I just have a staple question, Anita, that I ask all of our guests. So if you could have a conversation looking back, if you could have a conversation with your 30-year-old self and could give yourself one piece of advice, knowing what you know now, what would it be?
Really to have the confidence to speak up and share your ideas. Because all the fast tracking through my career, it looks like I did. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't. There's a lot of stuff that I was too afraid to share. And I could have expedited my career had I had more confidence in myself.
That's really great advice.
It's great advice. And it's so interesting because as you sit here today, you're an incredibly confident individual, very successful. So I had my staple question that I'm beginning to ask. So I'm going to ask you as well, and then we'll do our inspires. So if you had one more conversation that you could have with somebody, living or dead, who would it be and why?
That's a tough one. It's probably one of my previous managers. The one that I said was one of the most pivotal, and it was Surrender. I probably should reach out to him because he is very much living.
Oh, Anita, you need to reach out to him this week.
It prompts the conversation. That's good.
Well, good. Well, thank you for your time, Anita. We're going to do our Inspire. This has been a really great conversation. So we are changing it up a little bit on our Inspires. So we're actually going to, moving forward, we're going to be reading Inspires from our listeners from our Facebook page, and then talking about who inspired them. And then we want you to give us who your Inspire is. Let me pull, I'm going to go first. I'm going to pull it up. So the Inspire that I'm reading this week is from Sophie Smith. So, and I'm going to read it. Hers says, her Inspire Thursday for this particular week was her best friend, Kylie Minot. She is tough as nails, a badass business owner, and a person who is always in her corner. She is raising 2 fierce girlies with a third on the way. And Sophie couldn't think of anyone more capable of raising independent, strong young women. She's an inspiration every day. So congratulations to both Sophie and Kylie. You guys will be, along with Anita, will be in our first newsletter that's coming out when this airs. So I'm going to pass it off to Natasha.
Yeah, I love it. Keep sharing. Thank you, Sophie, for the post. I also have one of our group members. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's a pretty long one, but go check it out on the page because it's fantastic. So this one was from Danielle Kims Jacobs, and she is writing about her son, Landon Jacobs. And I'm just going to call it a couple things that she wrote in her story, but she says from the day he was born, he made it very clear things had to be done his way. He challenged her as a parent to her very core, she says. Continued into his teenage years, challenge after challenge. And then one day she writes about how he unfortunately rolled his truck down a 200-foot cliff, landing, thankfully being stopped by a tree. He did survive. It sounds like their relationship coming out of that got a lot stronger. They were in it together. She wrote about how he, continued working, really dove into working and just stayed persistent in getting back to health and happiness and all of that good stuff. So she writes that she wouldn't change any of the challenges they faced because the outcome was the best answered prayer mom could ask for. So Danielle, thank you so much for sharing. Really appreciate it. We will absolutely feature it. And if you want to read the rest of that, it is on the Facebook page, Grandpa the Millennial.
I love it. So Anita, share with us it's not for just an inspiration 30. Who's your inspiration?
Well, most of you have probably guessed it. My inspiration has been my children and providing for them the life that I didn't have. And even though now have all graduated college on their own and have their own families and are supporting themselves, I don't have to support them anymore, but I still want to be a role model for them.
Yeah, excellent. How many grandbabies do you have, Anita?
I have 2.
Well, listening to your story and where it started with what your motivation was with your children and then going all the way through, I'm not surprised at all that they're your inspiration. I've met all of them. They're all wonderful human beings. Congratulations on getting them through college. I'm sure they did all of the hard work, but I know as a parent, you're incredibly proud, and congratulations on the 2 grandbabies. And thank you very, very, very much for coming and talking with us and sharing your time. Anything parting words you want to leave for those that are listening?
No, just thank you for having me on. And I, hope that even though my story was long, I want people to know that, there's no right or wrong way to get to your goals, and that, you're going to have curveballs, and that's where you learn.
Yes. Yes.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here, but I always take gems from every single episode. And so being, a young professional, a woman in business, a leadership role, all of the things that you talked about are definitely, I can relate to. And so all of those gems of somebody who's been through it, and you're right, it's, it's learning. It's not always going to go perfect. So I always appreciate hearing a story that's not a straight line. It's often not a straight line to success. So just really appreciate you being so open and sharing all of your insight. It was fantastic.
Yeah. And I can't wait till chapter 2, Anita. We'll do it in another 20 years.
There we go.
We'll see where you're at. All right, Natasha, you're up.
Better be retired.
That'll be the story. All right. Well, I will sign us off. Gramps, Millennial, and Anita out.